This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Robert Fekkes, the Nerdster, or no, just Nerdster330 on Instagram.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. I'm your host, the aforementioned Matt Hurt, and with me today is recurring co-host and COVID-19 survivor, Robert Fekkes. Fekkes, oh, God.
That's a joke, guys. I'm fine.
Yeah. If you hear beeping in the background, that's just his respirator and his everything. Yeah, but by the way, we are recording remotely and everything, so the sound quality may be a little bit different. Hope you guys, I hope it's not too bad, guys. But we're here. So Fekkes, how's it going? And what's up?
It is going well. Enjoying a nice little deck. Podcasting right now on my back porch, so lovely day for it.
Very nice. It has been pretty nice, I guess, in terms of weather. A little warm, but you know.
Well, I was gonna say a little chilly for my taste, but you know, I'm weird like that.
Right. Yeah.
I like my 90s.
See, I can't do that. Nope.
That's good stuff. Opens up the pores, Matt.
I guess.
Right?
I just
good for the soul.
I just like being cold and distant and afraid.
You do keep your apartment at like sub-zero temperatures, so.
Oh, I love it so much. Yeah.
Well, more power to you.
Yeah, it's. I'm not going to apologize for it.
You should never apologize for being you, Matt.
Thank you. I will not. I feel like pizza might be constantly like freezing, but that's fine. She's got fur. She's okay.
She needs to pack on the weight then.
She does, yeah. It's so dumb. But anytime that this has nothing to do with what you just said, but whenever I throw a toy for her and she jumps up and tries to catch it in her paws, I'm just like I just look at her, I'm like, you're such an idiot. You don't have any thumbs. You can't catch things, you stupid.
Idiot. You didn't evolve thumbs like me. I'm awesome.
Right? Stupid cat. Anyway, so you're back. This is your first episode of The Obsessive Viewer in a very long time, Fekkes.
It has been a minute. It has been a minute.
What have you been up to, and how did you feel about the Patreon stuff that we just recorded?
Been up to my basic stuff. Been working, hanging around the house, going out when I can, that sort of thing. You know, trying to enjoy stuff.
Nice. I'm looking at the list. Wow, you have not been on an episode of The Obsessive Viewer this year. Holy shit.
Oh, wow. Shit.
Yeah, because we did the Invisible
Man. We did the Invisible Man, and that didn't work out.
No. Wow. Okay. So you did come down with a case of the COVID.
I did.
Yeah. Did you, I was talking to Tiny about it, and I was like, well, in terms of everyone involved with The Obsessive Viewer, it's like at least one of us was bound to get it. So of course it would be like the more health conscious of all of us. Yeah. Well, I guess you and Ben, but yeah. Anyway, do you want to document your experience with it?
Yeah, sure. I've been pretty open talking about it. Anyone that asks. So basically, me and the wife went to the Dominican Republic back in early July. It was one of those things where we just, she's a nurse, I'm a police officer. Obviously, we've been getting our asses handed to us at both of our respective jobs lately because of the world. So we needed this vacation. So went to the Dominican. We laid over in Miami, which if I'm a bet man, I'm going to say that it was picked up at. Mm-hmm. So my theory is that Cassie caught it somewhere in Miami, probably on the airplane or in the airport, obviously. She developed a symptom a little earlier than I did. She had a minor cough the day before we left the Dominican, and I woke up the day we left the Dominican with an extremely mild cough. So when we flew back through Miami again, and the only thing I really had at that time, I didn't even have a cough in the afternoon, so I just felt fine. Mm-hmm. Cassie, it was funny, we were in the airport. She goes to get, we both go to get dinner. We eat dinner, and then we go to our terminal before flying back to Indy. Well, she decides to go get an iced tea. And so I'm like, well, if you're going to go get that, get me an iced coffee. So she does. She goes, and she comes back 20 minutes later, and she sits down. She goes, I can't taste this. I'm like, you can't taste the iced tea? She goes, no, not at all. I was like, well, is it strong? She's like, well, it's iced tea. I'm like, well, okay. Well, I was like, well, try tasting my coffee. And she tastes. I was like, yeah, I can't. So between the 20 minutes of us eating dinner and sitting down and having her iced tea, she lost her sense of taste and smell, which was just really odd. Mm-hmm. So we fly back home. The next day we'll wake up. Still just a very minor cough on my end. Cassie's cough has become a little bit more prevalent. And my intention was I was going to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. And Cassie was like, take your temperature. I don't want you to, do anything silly. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll take my temperature. Well, I take my temperature. It's like 100.3. I'm like, God damn it. So at that point, Cassie never ran a temperature, but, her sense of taste and smell was gone. She had cough, and I was like, God damn it, we had this stupid bullshit. And so, she calls her work, and she gets set up for a test immediately, and I stew about it for like 2 hours before I call anybody. And so I call my lieutenant, and I'm like, hey, LT, so I'm symptomatic. And his response was bursting out laughing, just dying laughing. And he's like, your brother, you're not serious. I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. So I set up for my test, and throughout that day, I was a little sluggish, but nothing nothing too bad. I just kind of chalked it up to we just got done traveling. Mm-hmm. My temperature never got above 100.7. The day after that, and that was the day that I had to drive to Greensburg to get my test. Oh. I was really tired. Just nothing like where I couldn't move or anything. I was just lethargic the entire day. Still just a very minor cough, barely even a cough, really more of just a clearing my throat type of deal. And the day after that, my temperature was under 100, and I was still waking up and working out, not in the gym. I was safe. I jogged outside. And then the third day back, I was fine, 100% fine, no temperature, no symptoms, no nothing, felt great. Cassie's symptoms lasted a little bit longer. She had kind of a persistent cough for about 8 days. Her taste and smell came back after 3 days of not having it, and she actually got the approval to go back to work before I did. Oh, wow. And, so after that, we're done. We both had very mild symptoms that my symptoms were barely affected me at all. We were fortunate. So I like to chalk it up to, I've been taking care of myself pretty readily throughout this entire process. I've been taking vitamin D and vitamin C since this broke out. And, I've always been a fitness guy, and I've always ate well. So I kind of chalked that up to how I survived it. So not survived, how I, whatever, made it through.
Hashtag Fekkes.
I've been telling people I've had colds that had knocked me out of my ass for a week, and my body just kind of brushes off. Not to minimize other people's experiences, because I know it's been detrimental to several thousands of people, but right. We were fortunate. So
nice. Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys are okay and everything.
Yeah. So we're looking at donating our plasma right now. So
good.
We're gonna get on that train. So.
Very nice.
If Tom Hanks can do it, I can do
it. So what, tell me about the test and everything. Was it as uncomfortable as it seems from? Okay. So this is a funny story. So I had to go to Greensburg to get my test, because we had to set up through our both individual employers, to go get a test. So Cassie's a nurse, so she works at IU Health. Obviously they have got sent immediately. Mm-hmm. So she goes get her test, and
I could have scheduled a test in Indianapolis through my employer, but I would have had to have waited like 4 days, and I just wanted to get it done. So I chose the first available test, and it just happened to be in Greensburg. So I drive down to Greensburg for the test, and everyone, you keep hearing that it's that long Q-tip they shove to the back of their brainstem. Well, I go there, and it's at the whatever county that is. I forget what it was. It was at their jail.
Okay.
So I go into their jail, and the guy gets this regular sized Q-tip, and he's like, "Okay, tilt your head back, pull your mask down." I do that, and he just swabs the inside of my nostrils. So I'm like, "Is that it?" And he goes, "Yep, that's it." I'm like, "Fucking A, okay, sounds good." So I get back home, and I'm talking to Cassie, and I tell her, and she gets all pissy. She's like, "Well, they didn't do it right." I'm like, "Well, I feel like that if they're conducting the test, they've had some results. I feel like it's been peer reviewed and all this stuff and checked." It's like, "Well, they didn't do it right. That's not how they're supposed to do it." And I'm like, this is the doctor. I don't know what you want me to say. And so she gets mad at me saying that I was questioning her medical expertise, and I'm not. I'm just like, well, it's like there has to be a reason they do it this way. It has to work. And she goes, "Well, they didn't do it right. Your test is going to come back negative." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So her test came back within 48 hours, and it was positive. So I was like, "Well, then I'm going to have it." So I told my employer, I was like, "Hey, look, just bank on me having it at this point." My test took 5 days to come back, and they sent it to me in email, and I opened it, and it was positive. And so Cassie, I'm talking to Cassie, and he's like, "Well, I came back, and it was positive, and I don't want to start this fight, so I don't even say anything. Don't even say anything." And she's like, I can't believe it came back positive." And then I was like, "You know what? I told you that there had to be a reason that this happened." He's like, "I was just hoping it was going to come back negative to prove my point." And now I'm pissed at that. I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry." So after that, I waited. They told me I had to quarantine myself for 10 days after the onset of symptoms, and if I was symptom free after 10 days and fever free for at least 3 days, I could break quarantine. So I waited until then, and I told my work that's the recommendation by the Indiana Department of Health, and so they're like, "Well, we're going to send you for another test just to be sure that it's agri-system." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So this time they send me to a different area or different companies doing the test, and so it was through the actual Indiana Department of Health. So I had to go to East 38th Street at one of the health centers there to get it done. And that time they did the one that went back to the brainstem, and I'm here to tell you that shit sucked.
Really?
It's awful. Oh, it's not painful, but it's just horribly uncomfortable.
That's what I heard.
They shove it all the way. You can't even. I never even thought you could shove something that far back in my nostril, but man, it's just like my nose started running all over the place, and I was just like, I felt like an idiot. The guy's doing this test in my car, and I'm probably making some stupid faces, but yeah, the second time they did it the right way, I guess.
Oh god. Yeah, that when I saw like those diagrams and stuff of like how the test is done, I'm like, "Yep, I'm staying inside. I'm never going outside." I'm like, because like I don't want to have to take that test.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, taking that test was the worst part about having the COVID.
Jeez. Yeah, it's
like, yeah, sure, I was lethargic for one day, but all I did was nap, so it wasn't even that bad.
Right. Oh God. Well, that's an interesting experience. I've known when you found out that you were positive, in the back of my head, I was like, "Oh, now I can finally answer those obnoxious tweets that are like, do you even know anyone who has had COVID?"
No.
Yeah.
But the flat Earth anti-vaxxer, COVID conspiracy people. So yeah.
So dumb.
This world's full of idiots. So
Yep, it really is. I went to the doctor for a non-COVID related thing the other day, and I just saw this guy just walking in with super confident strides and everything with the mask under his nose, and I'm just like, we're 6 months into this thing. How do you not know?
They know, they just don't care, and that's not to get onto this side tangent. I don't have any private business that wants to mandate a mask. I'm all for it. It's your private business. I don't love a government mandated mask order because I know people aren't going to follow it. And there's I'm a police officer. I'm supposed to enforce this thing, but we've been given no direction on how to enforce it, and pretty much everyone's taking the stance as well. I don't know what they want me to do, so there's nothing I really can do. So, people are going to come in, they're going to wear the masks incorrectly, they're not going to wear the masks at all, and it's annoying. I think government overreach is a problem, and not just this, but a lot of areas, and not just COVID related. Right. So if you're a private business and that's what you want to mandate, I'm all for it. If you want to kick people out for not wearing a mask in your private business, more power to you. I'm all for that, but I don't love the government mandate for it because I know people. I work with idiots, or not my coworkers are idiots, but my job is basically to corral idiots. So I know how people are.
Yeah, and I think you and Tiny are kind of, you guys line up pretty similarly with your kind of politics and your reactions to this thing. Like in my head, I'm just like, yeah, okay, I get that. I understand like not liking the government mandate thing, but it's also, I feel like people are so dumb that they're not going to do it unless, and even that's proven wrong, but unless like the government's like, hey, you have to do this. But
people are still not doing it.
Yeah. It's annoying.
Like I walked into Walmart. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post, but Walmart had a guy playing a guitar and singing in the entrance of the goddamn store, not wearing a mask.
Jeez.
And I'm like, of all the people that probably should be, it's probably the guy vocalizing in front of the entrance to this place. I just kind of shook my head and was like, well, that's Walmart for you.
Yeah. I don't know if I said this on the podcast yet, but I went to Penn Station to grab some lunch, and they have a big sign on the door saying, hey, you need to have a mask if you want to enter and everything. It's required. And I go in, and the guy in front of me is not wearing a mask, and like the people working there aren't enforcing it, so whatever. But they have like the plexiglass like protector things up by the register. Yeah. And he is talking to the woman at the cash register, but he is putting his face less than 2 inches away from the glass to speak to her.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, and I'm just like you cannot be that stupid. And I kind of just kept thinking, like I just kept imagining, like, okay, how many people have come in that have not been wearing masks, that they're not telling them to wear masks, and just fucking spitting on the glass and when they're talking and everything, and this dude's just breathing it in, and I'm yep. This thing isn't going anywhere. No. And people are going to be people no matter what. So that's I've been on board with opening things up for a long time, and I just think that it's proof right now that this shit's not going to go anywhere. And I think if you want to wait for a vaccine, man, who knows when that's going to be? Like, I think it's probably going to be before the end of the year, but it couldn't. It might not be. It might be, sometime in the spring. So I think this is something that society is just going to have to handle and deal with for the time being. But, I respect anybody else's opinion on the matter, because I know some people are really fearful, and I know that it's decimated people's lives and taken a lot of lives. So I don't want to diminish anyone else's opinion about it. But. Right.
People are silly, man, and inconsiderate. People are just inconsiderate. Like,
yes. Oh, yeah.
I have no problem wearing a mask when I'm told I have to. And, even in the Dominican Republic, our resort, we had to wear masks when we were indoors, and I have zero problem with that. I get it. These guys have been waiting to come back to work for 4 months too. They want to be safe. DR, fortunately, did not get hit very hard through this pandemic. But, it's a privilege to be on the resort at that point. So I'm not going to be that jackass and be like, I'm an American, I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to wear a mask. No.
Right.
These people are here to, serve me drinks and, make my experience wonderful. So I'm not going to be that jackass. And for the most part, on the resort, everyone's pretty compliant. Of course, you had a couple of assholes. But.
Yeah. So like you guys did wear masks like the entire time. I remember you telling me that you guys were freaking Boy Scouts over it. And
yeah, in the airport, on the airplane, we, unless we were sitting down to have something to eat, we wore a mask the entire time, and we still caught it, and that's going to happen. I'm sure there's some prevention aspects to the mask. I don't think it's as preventative as people would have you believe, but I think that there's probably some benefits to it. But we still caught it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So,
well,
nothing's foolproof.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're okay and everything. And like I said, phone lines we're standing by for the relief effort for FekkesStrong.
I told Cassie I was going to get a tattoo commemorating my survival of COVID-19. So.
Oh God.
I'm not really, because she put the X on that, but I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah. God. Yeah, that would be something. That would be something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in other news and everything, they did to kind of shift away from COVID for now, I guess. By the way, today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about Palm Springs and the Old Guard here in a bit. But I do want to get a conversation started with you, Fekkes, about Mulan and the kind of video on demand thing. Like, to kind of recap, they announced that the remake of Mulan, the live action remake of Mulan, is going to be on Disney Plus, I think September 6th or something, at a price point of $30 to rent. And Fekkes, how do you feel about that in relation to the world we're in now? And people are saying that it could be furthering the death of theaters and everything if this is a new model of premium video on demand. So how did you react to that news?
Well, I want to start off by making it known that I called this. Me and you had this conversation. Mm-hmm. I was slightly off because the conversation we had, I said that they were going to release Mulan video on demand, and I predicted that it was going to be a $10 fee for Disney Plus members. So that's right. I'm going to say I'm 75% right on my prediction. Mm-hmm. I think the $30 price point is outrageous.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not 100% clear. Is it a one-time use 24-hour deal with Mulan? Because I know you don't get to keep it.
Right. I believe that it is a one-time use rental fee, and I wasn't clear on it either. But my take on it is that it is a $30 one-time fee for a one-time rental of the movie that is in addition to your Disney Plus subscription. So I think that people with Disney Plus are the only ones that can actually get to that premium one, but it wasn't very clear when I read about it.
Yeah, $30 is way too expensive in my viewpoint, especially when you're already charging people a subscription fee.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to come out and say video on demand rental just on its own is $30, okay, I get it. This is it's a top tier movie, and you guys are trying to get your money in for it now. But $30 for a one-time deal for a subscription fee that you're already paying, I just think that's crazy expensive. I'm not going to pay it. I'm going to wait. It's going to come down in price at some point, like everything else does. So I'll wait for it. I get what they're doing. They're trying to make up the money that they're losing on this property, but you're doing so at the expense of your customers.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people were okay. I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook about it, but I shared the article and I just mentioned it's really expensive. Funny side note to that is that I meant to post that on the Obsessive Viewer page, but I ended up sending it to just my personal Facebook page. But so I had a bunch of people comment on it, and a lot of people were like, well, that's pretty much the equivalent of what we would spend if we went to go see it in the theater. In terms of if a couple had a date night or something, or if someone had kids and wanted to bring their kids and everything. And I'm like, yes, that's true. It is comparable when in those terms. But on one hand, I'm alone, and I'm just
right.
I'm that. It's not the same for me. And also that that price point, $30, is what I was spending 5 or 6 months ago to see 3 movies a week at AMC. Like, it's just that gulf is so big for me that because I had grown accustomed to the subscription service and everything. And it's just like that's just too big of a leap and everything. Also, it's Mulan. Like,
you're paying for the movie theater experience, though, when I go to a movie theater. So that's a completely different take. Yeah. For all I know, I'm fortunate enough to have a really nice TV, a big screen. Somebody might be watching this on an older, 19-inch television, and that's not the experience of a movie theater, and that's the price point of a movie theater is $30. So I disagree with it. To the second part of your question, I think this is furthering the killing of the cinema industry. I think it's pretty clear now that this industry is most likely not going to survive this pandemic. And we've had this discussion before, and I predicted 5 to 10 years before this pandemic that the cinema industry was going to go under. It's much quicker now. They've hit the jugular so far. So,
and the kind of future that I'm seeing, and like, it's not, this isn't informed or anything or whatever, and I know you don't like speculating this kind of stuff, but like, I could see a future where the streaming, like the video on demand stuff, is the primary release of a movie, and then movie theaters will still exist, but as niche markets to like house like the big blockbusters and special screenings. Like, I don't.
Right.
Which is
so you're not going to have the multiplexes. You're going to have more scenarios like the IMAX downtown, where they have maybe 2 screens that are playing big releases, big event movie types. But you're not going to see the art house movies getting released in the theaters unless it's like a specialty event or just a little niche night at the art house theaters. But I think the days of 18 screen cinema complexes are over.
Yeah, I can't refute that at all. And that in a nutshell is why is the biggest reason why it's so kind of just heartbreaking, because you think about like indie filmmakers and people that aren't in the studio system or in the industry where they're pumping out these multiple millions and millions of dollars of movies, but like the smaller movies and everything, like depriving those artists of a movie theater experience for their art is just really just sad to me.
I agree. I love the movie theater experience. I'm going to miss it terribly. I do miss it terribly. But I think one of the things you're going to see, one benefit of this is it's going to be an easier method for getting indie type movies to the general public to begin with. Yeah. And this started before the COVID thing. You had top tier directors putting their movies on streaming services. You have Martin Scorsese releasing The Irishman on Netflix. You have Roma going to Netflix, and Roma being an Oscar nominated film. So you're going to see a lot more movies available to the general public that may not have gone to the theater to go see, The Irishman or Roma or some of these other lesser tiered indie films. So the exposure is going to be probably a little bit better for the lesser involved movies. But I think you're probably going to see for a little bit until they figure out the new business model. Some of these big blockbusters are going to be far and few between because they're so expensive. The market right now is just not there, and when it does come back, I think the China market is going to be extremely volatile. I think the repercussions of what's going on between U.S. and China right now is not even breached the surface. The Chinese market has been such a huge benefit to Hollywood, and there's a lot of things going on with that country that I don't think that that's going to continue on that course. I could be wrong. Politics are a funny thing, but right now it's pretty evident that our country and a lot of countries in the world are kind of at odds with China right now. Yeah. It's especially over censorship. So I don't know. I can make all the predictions I can, and I'd probably be wrong, but it doesn't look good for the industry right now.
I agree, and hopefully hopefully something happens to kind of salvage something. And I don't know. I do not think we are going to see Tenet this year.
I agree. Internationally, it looks like they're going to.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers has been pretty staunch on their claim that it's not going to be released to video on demand, but a lot of people have changed their tune, and not just in the movie industry. The track, the Indianapolis 500 track, said we're unequivocally going to run this race with fans. They said that back in May, and they released the announcement just this week that they are going to run this race now without fans.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, they're struggling right now too because they're having to postpone a lot of games because they're having a lot of problems with players testing positive for COVID. And the big talk is NFL right now, and I know you're not a big sports guy, but if MLB is having these kinds of problems, NFL is going to. And absolutely. NFL, there's only 16 games in a season for these teams. I don't see the NFL completing their season this year, and I think that's going to be that's going to parallel the lines of the entertainment industry too. That's just my opinion. It's a sucky opinion, but
yeah. But I mean, it's a realistic kind of
right.
Like I think, what was it? I don't remember the teams, but in the MLB, the two teams played like a series of like 3 games, and like right after that, like 16 of them got like tested positive, I think.
Well, the Marlins had 19 players on their roster test positive for it, and like 3 coaches. And they're trying to have these players confine themselves to these hotel rooms, and that's great in theory. But you're talking about a bunch of super athletic young people, and you're going to tell them sit in your hotel room in between games. That's just not practical. And they're doing what any mid-20s or young 20-year-old athletic guy that's used to doing what he wants. It's happening. They're going to the hotel bar. They're going. The Cardinals players went to a casino, and the Cardinals had some players turn up positive. And you can sit there and you can be mad at the players, but I really can't blame them to tell them you're going to be cooped up in this hotel room and dance for us, monkey, when we tell you to, and come out and play this game, and then go back to your room. That's just not practical. I'm sorry. It's not, especially for these super athletes. They need an outlet. So you're either going to have to accept the fact that these players are going to come into contact with this disease, or you're just going to have to cancel these seasons. Yeah. And in my opinion, I think the players should just accept it. They're getting paid millions of dollars to play these games, and they're giving them the option to opt out if they want to. If you don't feel comfortable, okay, opt out. But if not, turns out that people have been stocking groceries and for $7.50 an hour since March, on the front lines of this thing, and no one seems to worry about them all too much. But God forbid a guy making millions of dollars in MLB contracts the virus. So.
Right. Oh God. Yeah. And I mean, I know exactly what you mean, talking about like a mid-20s super athletic guy. I mean, I know that world so well.
No, yeah, that's a lifestyle you live too. I get it.
Oh yeah. But yeah, and then all the stuff with the schools and everything is just, I don't know, like the last several months I've gone from having like panic attacks over it, just fear-based panic attacks and everything, to being just kind of okay-ish and everything, or more comfortable. But now it's just like I just want everything to just kind of go back to normal, and it's not. So
no, it's not, unless we allow it to. I think that I've said earlier, this thing is here. It's not going to go anywhere. Even when the vaccine does hit, there's still going to have people that are going to contract this thing. Vaccines aren't 100%. The flu vaccine is evidence of that. So, and the school thing, not to get too much involved into this, but I can't fathom not sending these kids back to school. And I'm not just saying that for the benefit of the children, but these parents need to go to work too, and they can't sit home and teach their kids or make sure they sit in front of these computer devices. And you're talking about kids or homes with multiple kids that they were not going to be able to afford 3 or 4 devices to teach, and they don't have enough money to pay for a good internet service with the bandwidth required to do this. There's just so many factors that the education of the children of this country is extremely important, and I feel like keeping them home is a disservice to them. And again, if people have alternate opinions of that, and I respect that and I get it, and I would never, get on Facebook and call them a bunch of assholes for it. But, it's just, I think people are going to have to accept the fact that this is here and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and that is such a leveled way to look at it, because like in my head I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you can't open schools back up because that's just going to cause like everything to spread even further. Like I saw a post that someone, like a meme where someone was like, okay, yeah, well, you can say that schools are going to have social distancing and everything and require masks and everything, but like your kid's going to come home, your kid's going to go to school wearing a Spider-Man mask and come home with a Ninja Turtles mask because he traded it with someone. Because
I saw that, yeah. And they're right. Kids are going to be kids, and you can only do so much. In that field, it's going to spread. Fortunately, kids don't seem to be susceptible to this virus all that much. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have outlying cases, and you have that with anything. But I just, man, keeping these kids, these kids have been home since March. And kids just, they need that structure. They need that learning structure. And it's just, I think it's going to be detrimental to keep them home for an indefinite period of time.
Yeah.
It's going to be detrimental to everybody.
I can definitely understand that. My kind of big thing, like, okay, my sister is currently living with my mom, and my mom is older. She has like diabetes. She has respiratory, like, susceptibility to like respiratory illnesses and stuff. So like, I'm thinking like, okay, well, if my sister sends her kids to school and they contract it and my mom contracts it because they live in the same place, like my mom would very much like not survive it. Like, it is very much a possibility. And fortunately, my sister's kids did get approved for e-learning and everything. But I do totally understand your point. Like, yeah, it's just such a weird time. It is such a freaking weird time.
It is. And I get your point. I get your concern 100%. And that's an extremely valid concern. Mm-hmm. And under circumstances like that, I'd have no problem with the ability for your sister to be able to petition to do online courses. If they have that availability, that's fantastic.
That is a special circumstance.
There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all for anything at this point. So
yeah, and I've talked about it before. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but it just feels like there is such an intense lack of leadership and direction in terms of the people in charge.
There's no argument from me on that.
Yeah, and that's the most infuriating thing about all of it, is that that's what causes me to have anxiety over it, because there's no sense of like leadership or anything. It's so yeah.
Well, it's just typical of the United States in general to have a pandemic like this and have it immediately be politicized.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on this. It's being used as a political event on both sides, and it's unfortunate. In my opinion, it just shows how little government or politicians care about the general public.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that about Democrats, Republicans, anybody that's involved in government right now. So.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
So.
I was thinking about this today, and we'll get into our actual movie review and everything in a second. But I was thinking about this today as I was walking through the building I work in, because I have to go into the office twice a week while wearing my mask, and I was looking around, and like, it's like there's some people that are still working in the office, but for the most part it's pretty empty. And like, I kind of keep thinking about it in terms of like, the building I work in is the building that I've worked in for the last 14 years across two different types of jobs. Like, I worked as a security guard in that building, and then now I'm working for the company in the building. And like, if I could go back and like, if like even a few years ago, if I could see like now, like what the building is like now, and like see me wearing a mask as I'm going through and just sorting papers and everything, and seeing all the signage and everything, and just the overall atmosphere as I like interact with people who are just kind of like just keeping to themselves and everything, it is so surreal and weird and everything. And like you just said that how the Indy 500 is going to run with 0 fans, and that is just nuts to me because, like, to put into context,
you wouldn't be able to convince somebody 2 years ago that this was a thing, and it's crazy. Yeah. On one hand, I find it incredibly interesting to be living in a time that's going to be studied in history books.
Yeah.
On the other hand, turns out that living in a time that's going to be studied in history books fucking sucks.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. Yeah. And like yep, it sucks. But just think, someone in the future is going to listen to this podcast and mine it for information.
That's true. Or some aliens are going to find it. One more tangent, and then we can get on to actually talking about the films. Mm-hmm. A testament to just how fucked up this year has been. Mm-hmm. We had a legitimate Pentagon official admit that we have recovered crafts that they think are off-world, and no one batted an eye.
Yeah.
No one batted. Everyone, it was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. That's fine. Yep. Last year that would have turned the world upside down. This year, everyone's like, whatever, okay. Yep. And to me, that's one of the most important news events of the decade. Right. And this country has brushed it off. Yep. Like, you were told that tomorrow it's going to be 88 degrees. Like, right. Oh, okay, all right, that's fine. Sure. It's incredible.
Yep. It is insane. And like previous to that, they have been they've said like over I think the last couple of years or something like, oh yeah, UFOs exist. And like anytime they say that, I'm like, okay, well yeah, unidentified flying objects exist because they're not identified. Like,
right, yeah, this definition of.
But like this is like, no,
if they said off world, it was like we believe this shit to be off world. It's like Jesus.
It's like that's insane. So
it is completely insane.
Yep. So hopefully that means that, hopefully I'm getting this right. Hopefully that means that soon Jor-El is going to come down and save us.
That would be great. Mm-hmm. If Kal-El
damn it.
Comes, Jor-El is Papa Super.
Okay, yeah.
And Kal-El is Superman. So yes, if Kal-El comes, oh, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Oh, God. So let's review some movies.
All right, yes, movies.
Okay, so yeah, that was a long tangent. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys aren't feeling too anxious about it. But we are going to be reviewing two movies today. Hopefully 2 movies. Hopefully we're still good with time. So the first up is Palm Springs, which is not the one that I just clicked on. Palm Springs. It is available on Hulu. It's produced by The Lonely Island. Palm Springs stars Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. And of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler review and then a spoiler review. So here is a plot summary courtesy of IMDb. When carefree Niles and reluctant maid of honor Sarah have a chance encounter at a Palm Springs wedding, things get complicated as they are unable to escape the venue, themselves, or each other. Man, that is a great plot summary.
Yeah, that doesn't give much away at all. That's impressive. I'll give him props on that.
Yeah. Writer for the movie was Andy Ciara, and director was Max Barbacow. So, Fekkes, how were you anticipating Palm Springs, and how did you feel about it in broad, non-spoiler terms?
So, anticipation is going to be pretty much my anticipation for any movie that comes out right now. Is I literally clicked on Hulu, and I'm like, oh, Andy Samberg put a Hulu movie out? I'll probably watch that, because I like Andy Samberg. Yeah. So I really didn't have much anticipation for it at all. And after watching it, this might have been my favorite movie to see since, this pandemic began, and this is now our new outlet for movies. Nice. As far as new movies for 2020. Not my favorite movie of 2020, but since all this has occurred, I thought it was a delightful movie. Like it was a good comedy. It was fun, lighthearted, something that probably needed right now. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and I would almost classify this as a rom-com. And I know I'm historically anti-rom-coms, but as far as rom-coms go, that is one of the top, better ones, if not best. So.
Nice. I'm so happy to hear you say that because A, definitely rom-com. B, I love rom-coms, and I loved this movie
I know you
so
do.
much. I was so charmed by this movie. It's like I was anticipating it pretty heavily because I like Andy Samberg, I like The Lonely Island, and Kristen Milioti. She was in the last couple of seasons of How I Met Your Mother, and as terrible as that show ended, her role in that show was one of the most charming, like fall in love with this character kind of runs of a character on a TV sitcom. And so seeing her in another lead role, or in a lead role in a movie that is also super charming, and I was super like into her performance and everything, was just a real treat. I really, really dug this movie. Going into, did you have any inclination about the Groundhog's Day aspect of it?
So this is funny because, first of all, no. I didn't have. I had a vague idea because I saw like a 3-line review of it on IGN.
Okay.
So I had kind of a vague idea of the concept of kind of like a Groundhog's Day thing. But the funny thing about this was, about 2 weeks ago, I was just looking for something to watch that I had not ever seen. Mm-hmm. And on my queue in Netflix, I had Groundhog's Day. I'd never seen it. I knew what Groundhog's Day was and what it was about. So I was like, well, I got an hour and a half to kill. I'll watch this. So I watched Groundhog's Day, and then they dropped Palm Springs. I'm like, Jesus Christ!
Wow.
If that's not an indication that this whole world is a simulation, I don't know what is. But yeah, so I thought it was very funny that I saw Groundhog's Day for the first time, and then saw this kind of like, not a remake of Groundhog's Day, but something of parallel lines to Groundhog's Day. So
that's really interesting. Cause Groundhog Day kind of seems like the type of movie that you would be really into. Like it sounds like that's.
Oh yeah, like it's got Bill Murray in it. It's a it's a '90s comedy, which it's kind of my generation.
Right.
Just never saw it, but on the short of it, I thoroughly enjoyed Groundhog's Day. I'm going to say that I thought Palm Springs was better.
Oh, nice. It's been so long since I've seen Groundhog's Day that I can't say for certain. I think if I rewatch Groundhog's Day, I would probably lean toward Palm Springs as well, in terms of liking it more, just because it's more my speed in terms of genre and I don't know, wit.
Right.
Groundhog's Day is incredible, but yeah, Palm Springs I was just super into.
Andy Samberg was great in it. Like, he was just hilarious, and just his off the cuff, like, don't give a shit, because, I won't go into that because it's kind of like spoilery, but, just from the onset, you immediately like this character because he's just like, whatever.
Yep.
Showing up to the wedding and like his shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. Later on, why, but you're like, that's hilarious.
It kind of very vaguely feels a little bit the Dude-esque, like Big Lebowski, a little bit. That kind of just casual.
I see where you're going. I don't know. I think that they're two completely different mindsets. I would say,
sure,
in my opinion, because the Dude is just living his life, and it's hard to explain why I think that's different without spoiling it. But Andy Samberg's character at this point has lived long enough in this day to day that he's just like given up and just like, go with the flow. I know this is going to happen again. He's going to do it again. He
has a darker edge than the Dude, but I think that kind of just taking it as it comes kind of way that he does. I think that they have some kind of similarities there. Granted, I haven't seen Big Lebowski in a long time, so
I watch that several, probably a couple, if not 3 times a year. I love that movie.
Nice. What did you think of Kristen Milioti?
I thought she was very charming. I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything. I'm not a big sitcom guy, so I never watched How I Met Your Mother, but she was incredibly charming. I loved her a lot. I thought she was great in the role.
Yeah.
This is one of those. She's easy to fall for. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, there's a montage, like about maybe almost midway through the movie, where it's just them just doing their Groundhog Day thing, and there's something about like it's a staple of rom-coms. Like, oh, they're going to have the montage of the couple together and everything. But in this context, there was something about it that just made it feel so fresh and unique in terms of the actual concept of the movie that I was just all for it. And I totally bought into their chemistry, like, throughout the entire movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And I love the part about that montage that I love is that at that point they're both embracing the situation that they're in, and they're just going to go and enjoy as much about it as they can. And it's great. I love that concept.
Oh yeah. Would you ever want to be stuck in a time loop like that?
Say it again. You broke up.
Oh, sorry. Would you ever want to be stuck in a time loop like that?
Absolutely not. It sounds horrifying.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I think I would be J.K. Simmons' character in that situation.
Yes. Which I really, and we'll talk more about him in spoilers, but I really liked the kind of not versions that we saw of him, but the different variety of interactions we saw with him, because like his introduction in the movie is pretty intense, and then we get like a really good like heart-to-heart moment with him that it kind of brought more texture into the drama of like the situation of the time loop thing. That scene is the scene for the movie for me. Mm-hmm. I love that conversation between them, and I love how it plays out, how it ends. So. Yep. I could have gone with more Roy. I thought he was great. I would like to see more, but I know the focal point is Andy Samberg and her. So, but I love Roy's character. The concept of Roy was fantastic. Yeah, I agree. And J.K. Simmons, I mean, he's legendary. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's knocks it out of the park no matter what.
Oh yeah. How did you feel about the actual comedy of it? Like were there any parts that stood out to you in terms of bits that were done that made you laugh or anything, or was it more just like enjoying the ride?
Most of it was enjoying the ride. I love the stuff that happened at the biker bar. I had a lot of fun with that, especially with the old grizzled lady. But yeah, for the most part, that's kind of my type of comedy if we're going to do a rom-com. Mm-hmm. And so I can't say that, I just sat there and laughed out loud the entire time, but it was charming and fun. I think that was kind of the appeal of it for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I loved living with those characters in that world and with that concept. Like there were moments where like Andy Samberg is telling her stories about his past in the loop and everything, and it's like those were pretty well done, but in terms of comedy, they were funny, but also it's just giving more, like I said, texture to the character and everything. And it's just, I thought it was a really well written movie. I really loved it.
Yeah, it was great. I was reading the reviews. Like when I read reviews, I just kind of look at the numerical number they give it and kind of go from there because I don't want to be spoiled. Sure. But I anticipated it being at least enjoyable. I was pleasantly surprised to have enjoyed it this much.
Yeah. Yep. Same here. I was pretty much primed to love it, and I was I was just very pleasantly pleased with it. Do you want to go into spoilers so we don't have to dance around anymore?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to play a clip from the trailer for Palm Springs, and then we're going to go into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out on Hulu, and then come back and listen to this section of the podcast, or skip ahead to the review of The Old Guard that we're going to do afterwards. Check the show notes for timestamps. Here's a clip from the trailer for Palm Springs.
It's going to be a beautiful wedding.
Here you are, standing on the precipice of something so much bigger than anyone here. But always remember, you are not alone.
I don't think that we met. I'm Sarah.
Niles.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice.
What the fuck is happening? Run, rabbit, run!
Niles?
Don't come in here!
What the?
It's going to be a beautiful wedding.
Good day so far? Today, tomorrow, it's all the same.
You! What is going on? Hey, get out of the water!
Guess you followed me. It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
That I might have heard about?
Yeah.
Okay. So something that I really loved about the way that the movie's structured is that I'll save the reveal of her waking up for later, but the first thing that I thought when I saw the movie was I knew that it was about two people stuck in a time loop. And then the way that it's set up and the way that it's introduced is that we see that Andy Samberg has been in the time loop for a very long time. And I found myself like hoping that I had kind of forgotten, or I was thinking that, oh, maybe she's not really in the time loop with him or anything. And like, I was so delighted when she did, because that's such a fresh take on this type of concept. So in spoilers, how did you feel about the movie in more specific details?
Yeah. I agree. I think the aspect of us coming into Andy Samberg's character, having been in the time loop for years, most likely, was a great introduction to it. Not only that, because it introduces you to this character, and you just think that he is, that flippant or carefree, but you don't realize why he is that way until 20 minutes into the movie, and then you're like, oh my god, that's hilarious. So it's not like Groundhog's Day where you come in and you follow him through the time loop. He's been there for a long time, and it's established, and that's what at this point we don't even know what he was like before the time loop, but this is him now, and it's funny to see that obviously he's become that through the time loop.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I love that the way that we're given details about him. Like I don't even think we really even get any real backstory for him.
No, you don't. You don't know what this guy did for a living. You don't know why he is with this girl at this wedding, who he knows. Like, you almost know absolutely nothing about his, who he is before he got caught in the time loop.
Yeah.
And you still don't at the end until you find out he's had a dog, and that's it. That's literally it.
And I love that, and I think it's such a mark toward the writing of the movie that even though we don't have those details, we know everything. Like we learn so much about him as a character, and I feel like that's kind of a unique way to present it, because he has been in this time loop for a very, very long time. Like it's a ridiculous amount of time, almost inconceivable amount of time. And so
I believe 40 years is what I read.
Oh, interesting. Okay, jeez. Oh yeah, that would be a nightmare. But yeah, but I love that, because we are introduced to him as who he has become, and we like peeling back his character is less about finding out who he was and regaining who he was, and more about just like how he has changed in this time loop. And I think that that's just a really clever and insightful way for the character to develop in the movie. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I thought it was great. A really fun introduction to a character.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of fun introductions to characters, Roy's introduction with the arrow.
Oh my god! It was hilarious, but I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Why is this guy hunting him with a bow and arrow? Yeah. So yeah, it was a great introduction, and Roy ended up being one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Mine too. God, so good. And in contrast to his character of Andy Samberg's character, Kristen Miliotti's character Sarah, we don't get her backstory until pretty well into the movie. That it's revealed that she slept with a groom the night before, and
right.
Just like that gives so much detail, or that is so interesting to me as in terms of just a haunting presence for her, because she has to wake up like in this mistake
every day with that mistake.
Yeah, and I love that the movie holds that back and then reveals it. Like I kind of gasped at it. I was like, that's really clever.
Right. Yeah, it was a really good reveal. And I wouldn't even say they hint at it, but they kind of drop little tidbits of like, why isn't so and so in a room? And like, well, yeah, why isn't she in a room? But it's very interesting dynamic to her character and the overall arc of the story.
Right. Totally. And the and also the the day that they spend where she's determined that it's karma that's keeping her in the time loop, so she like whispers to her sister, and she like, and we're not like, we don't hear what she says or anything, and like you kind of think, at least from my perspective, I was like, oh, she's saying something like super sweet and very endearing or something, and she's like explaining this. But then like that happens, and it's like, oh, that recontextualizes that entirely. Just really good. Yeah. And another big kind of reveal was Andy Samberg, Niles, revealing that he has slept with her thousands of times.
Yeah, but I think you kind of figure that. Like, it wasn't a shock to me. I was kind of like, he had taken that that part of the story like very like that happened very smoothly, as if it had been done before. So. Not that it was off the cuff. So my feeling was like, he's done this before. And today was the day he was like, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sleep with her again today.
That's a good point. And I kind of, like, I suspected it, but I don't know. Kind of go back to his kind of flippant nature. He's kind of flippant about that too. And I can understand how she would be just like really shocked by it and everything. I thought that was a really good way in terms of like the rom-com cliche and the rom-com structure. I thought that was a really good way to kind of have them do their the quintessential rom-com split up.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was good, and I really liked that she spent that time learning quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
I thought that was because I don't think I've seen any use of like that type of device that actually solve how to get out of it, like actually using the time and everything. I thought that was kind of clever. Yeah. How did you feel about the kind of, I guess, ending, them escaping and everything?
I thought, obviously, the whole time loop thing is not rooted in any type of science. Having them just explode out of it is like, okay, whatever. It was nothing, mind blowing. It was, they had to come out of it some way. So I guess that's one way to have it done. So I'm not going to sit here and say it was the greatest method of them coming out of the time loop, but it worked for them, I guess. It wasn't the most impressive part of the movie for me.
Okay. That's fair. I think I liked it as kind of a refresher from the type of thing that I was expecting. I was expecting like, oh, they're going to realize that they're meant to be and that they're in love and everything.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Well, that would have been a terrible way too. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's better than the alternative for sure.
Sure. It's quirky. It's quirky. It's funny. So it kind of fits the tone of the movie. So that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the last scene. They're like, oh, I guess they come back on November 10th.
Right, I guess they come back today. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the movie? We kind of ran through it pretty quickly, but how did you feel about it?
Like the revelation of Roy, yes. I think, first of all, finding out why Roy is Roy, I thought was fascinating because I feel like Roy's presence when he meets him at the wedding for the first time is kind of how Andy Samberg's character had developed after being through the time loop. Because that was just kind of like my take on Roy. He's just very off the cuff, very laid back, very don't give a care about anything, that given your first introduction. So I thought it was a good parallel to Andy Samberg, and you kind of understand why he is so drawn to him at that time. But I love the explanation as to why Roy is hunting him down.
Yeah.
And then the final interaction, the final conversation between him and Roy, I thought was just, to me, that was the scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Good. It was a perfect scene, and it ends perfectly too with him shooting him with the bow and arrow right in the trash can. So.
Yeah, that was great, and it really brought home this other side of this situation and everything, because you have the montage and everything where it's all kind of happy-go-lucky and fun and everything, but like the kind of the mental anguish of like, oh, I can never see my kids grow up because they're the same age every day and all that, like that kind of thing just like really felt, I don't know, just like that kind of was endearing to me.
It's kind of shitty that they left Roy in the loop though.
It is, but did you watch the mid-credits scene?
No, I did not. I did not know that there was a mid-credit scene.
Interesting. Yeah, after a couple of runs of the credits, there's a scene at the end. I won't spoil it for you.
I'll go and watch it.
Okay.
I'll go and watch it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And there's nothing after the credits or anything. It's just mid-credit scene.
God, I gotta get used to every single movie having a goddamn mid-credit scene now. I guess.
I know, right?
It's not just a Marvel thing.
Yep. Got to get used to every movie having mid-credit scenes. Every movie being on streaming.
Yeah.
So in the have you watched any other Lonely Island movies like Popstar or Hot Rod? And how does it?
I haven't seen I haven't seen Hot Rod. I saw Popstar. Yeah. I saw Popstar because I was in the theater with you.
Right.
I love Popstar. I thought it was hilarious.
Me too.
And that was really. I think Popstar was probably my first real introduction to Andy Samberg because I had stopped watching SNL by that time, and so I really wasn't familiar with much of his work. But I thought Popstar was great.
Me too. I just rewatched it, and it holds up. It holds up really well.
Yeah, it seems like one of those that would not really diminish.
Yeah, and it's a little. Maybe it's not fair to really compare them because Palm Springs is written and directed by someone other than like the Lonely Island team. Lonely Island just kind of produced Palm Springs, whereas they were writing and starring in Popstar. But I really loved this movie, and and I'm looking forward to watching it again. Really, it's one of those that's going to be on rotation, I think.
Well, I'm going to try to get Cassie to watch it because I think it's something she would really dig too. So
nice.
I'm going to try to have her watch it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, and we'll move on to the old guard here in a bit, but you mentioned it's not your favorite movie of the year or anything. Like, do you want to give a rundown just real quick? Like, what's like your top 2 movies of the year so far?
Oh, man.
Fucked up weird world.
Let me pull up my list real quick. It's readily available on my phone. So,
nice. Man, it would be readily available as well is if you got a Letterboxd account.
Oh yeah, I guess. What's this Letterboxd thing?
Yeah,
I've never really heard of it.
Post your viewing stats and log your movies and share reviews and stuff. I love it so much.
Oh, okay. Going into before this all started, God, the last movie I saw in the theater was Onward, wow. And that was on March 10th.
Wow. March 11th was the way back for me. That was the last movie in the theater.
So I hadn't seen a whole lot. I saw Birds of Prey. It doesn't count, but it's what I saw in 2020. So I would say Parasite is probably the best movie I've seen this year. And I know technically that's a 2019 movie. But if you're going to tell me I have to pick one from this year, I had so much fun with The Gentleman. I'd have to say that.
Oh, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed The Gentleman. So
I still haven't watched it. You gave me the digital copy, and I still haven't watched it. I feel bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To be fair though, if this were say 2020 wasn't the train wreck that it was, I don't think The Gentleman would crack my top 10.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean I didn't absolutely love it. But I just know that Tenet and No Time to Die and Black Widow. There's a plethora of movies that I could have seen that could have easily bumped it. But movies specifically from 2020, I'm going to have to say that The Gentleman so far is probably my number 1.
Nice. So what would be the runner-up?
Well, I guess Onward.
Okay. Nice.
I would probably be a safe bet for runner-up. I'm trying to go through see what I've seen. I've watched Extraction was okay. That was Chris Hemsworth Netflix vehicle, and it was nothing spectacular, but it was entertaining, I guess, in a sense. But fuck this year, man.
I know. Yeah, it's.
I really thought The Five Blood was going to be up there, but I thought it was just a little bit better than okay.
Okay. I still haven't gotten around to seeing that, but I've heard good things.
I thought you did. I thought you saw that one.
No. I was supposed to, but I didn't get around to it. but I did see The Old Guard, and let's switch off to our review of The Old Guard.
Okay.
Who are you? You can call me Andy. I lead a group of soldiers. Fighters, like you. With an extremely rare skill set.
What do you mean? Mother?
Let's just say we're very hard to kill. You've got questions, kid. You want answers?
Yeah, so here we go. We're going to do non-spoiler and spoiler review. The Old Guard is on Netflix right now. It is... okay, the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is a covert team of immortal mercenaries are suddenly exposed and must now fight to keep their identity a secret, just as an unexpected new member is discovered. This movie stars Charlize Theron, Kiki Lane, Matthias Schoenaerts, and is directed by Gina Prince Blythewood and written by Greg Rucker based on his graphic novel series of the same name. So, Fekkes, it's based on a graphic novel. You're a comic book fan. Were you aware of it? Had you ever read any of it or anything?
No, I'd never heard of this intellectual property. So this was, I knew it was coming on Netflix. And I'd read a couple of reviews for it through IGN and comingsoon.net, both of whom gave it pretty glowing reviews.
Yeah,
I was anticipating something good.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Uh-huh.
I guess critics don't get it right every time.
No, they don't. So in broad non-spoiler terms, how did you feel about The Old Guard?
I would call, like, if I wrote a review for this, I think I would just not even write anything except for painfully forgettable would be my review of it. It was a bad movie.
Yeah.
It should have just called it The Old Cliches, because that's really what it was.
Yes.
And it was just mundane action, trying to emulate John Wick scenes. And it was forgettable. Like, I struggle to even think about this movie in terms of what I remember from it, because I was just checked out halfway through. I was like, I guess I have to finish watching this because I told Matt I'd review it. But it was not good. I'll never see it again. And their little tag scene at the end has not gotten me excited to see the sequel. So
I hate that. That is something I'm growing to hate in any movie, like the setting up of a sequel, like in setting up a franchise. Right. I hate it so much.
How about you wait to see how successful this one's going to be? But they're going to make it. I think they've already even said they're going to make it.
Probably.
So, I won't watch it because I just don't care. Like, I didn't care halfway through this. I don't think I cared about this movie 20 minutes into it. I was like, okay.
It's so weird because, like, okay, the plot involving like immortal mercenaries, like, okay, that as a concept is like just a little bit interesting. Like, it's
right.
Like a kernel of an idea that could be interesting, but the entire movie surrounding it is just cliched action movie, just running through the paces and everything. It's like they don't do anything interesting with that, and they don't tell any compelling story with it at all. It's just so bland.
And the bad guy, the Dursley from Harry Potter, just so typical, like, ridiculously evil for no reason except for I want to become richer, even though look at my riches. Like, I'm legitimately the world's richest man and better get rich. I'm like, come on, this is just nonsense.
It's just,
first of all, there's no pharmaceutical company that cares that much about immortality. Okay. Right.
Yes, just as at the base level, like, that's not, like, that is something that it could probably shut down the pharmaceutical industry.
Right. Like that would be ridiculous. I need this. I need immortality so I can stop producing medicine.
Right.
It's fucking nonsense.
When you pull at the threads, it comes apart super easily, and like
it so much does.
Yeah, and it's funny.
And
I was
no. Go ahead.
I came into this prepared to say, like, the action was pretty good and like the stylized violence was pretty cool. Then you threw out the John Wick reference, and I'm like, oh, okay, yep, I can definitely see it. Like that has dropped it down in my eyes now because it is so just reactionary to that style and everything, and it's not done well, really.
It's not. It's like a film student decided to make a John Wick clone. And it just came out just like, wow, I guess you understand the principles behind fight scenes, but it's not dynamic, it's not interesting, and it's flat boring, to be perfectly honest.
And the characters, you don't really care about any of them, really. It's like...
I couldn't name the character at this point.
I just know Charlize Theron's character, Andy, like, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, because she was Andromeda.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Like her and Kiki Lane's character as the kind of the new blood into this group of mercenaries and stuff, like it's just so rote and so just completely cliched, and it's like I can't, like, they have that whole fist fight on the plane, and I'm just like, what's the point of this? like this,
right?
It's just so bland and uninteresting.
I couldn't care less about Charlize Theron's backstory. They try to make it compelling.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, I was taken right out of the movie with the poor production value of her medieval fight scene stuff. Like, it just looked like they found these costumes in the back of a theater house that was doing some Shakespeare plays, and it was terrible. It was awful.
I honestly had checked out so much at that point that like that didn't even register with me. I was like, okay, this is her backstory. This is this person. We're doing this. Okay, fine. I was so focused on trying to just follow what was going on because it was so bland and uninteresting to me that it didn't even register with me the production value.
Right.
But yeah.
And how about the new Immortal? You look like you're a hardened, seasoned combat operative in the U.S. military in a hostile combat zone. I've never seen someone in that capacity be so averse, not used to violence.
Yeah.
It's like everything was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. You were literally in a war-torn country fighting in a combat zone as a combat specialist, and you're this averse to violence.
And that's where I think the movie had its biggest misstep, because there's a little bit of lip service done to show, like, she's saying that, oh well, the Marines conditioned me to be like a warrior and everything and all that, and then now, like, if I'm in like a life or death fight, like, I know that I can't die or whatever, like that, those like little elements there could have been expanded and been more interesting, but it's just left there. It's like okay, this is our explanation for why she doesn't like the violence or whatever, because we need her to leave at one point so she can come back, not because it's interesting for the character.
We need her to be the reluctant hero in this. Exactly. And it's just I'm sorry, it was just awful.
Yeah, it did not really do anything for me. And do we even need to do a spoiler section?
You know what? I will say this, and it doesn't even have to be a spoiler, I guess. The one part about this movie that I thought was semi-interesting, or at least inventive, was the way that they did away with Charlize Theron's best immortal buddy. Like, I thought that was actually kind of clever and horrifying at the same time. Locking her into a steel casket and dropping her to the bottom of the ocean to die over and over again for eternity. That's pretty fucking awful, and I was actually kind of impressed with that. But that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Same here.
You knew she was gonna make an appearance at some point again. You knew it was gonna be a setup for something. So,
like, I I thought for sure that she was going to be like the big bad of the movie and everything, because that's just what these movies are. But then the way they utilize her, it's just like, okay, this is...
Yeah, she's the big bad of the sequel, is what that's setting up.
Yeah.
You know, with the newly disenfranchised member of the Immortals. Right. And it's just... Man, just fucking... And you know what part I hated, too? Like, the two Immortals that are boyfriends or husbands, or... you know, he actually put it pretty eloquently in the scene, which I kind of appreciated his description of his relationship with him. I'll get second point. That was a very well written scene, apparently.
Yeah.
But then they ruined it when they go and they kiss, and they had the SWAT guys go, ugh. I'm like, okay, guys, okay. That's what we're doing now. You know, all these SWAT guys are in 6th grade, and they just saw two guys kiss for the first time. Like,
God.
Stop it.
I agree.
Just stop.
I agree. And that's the one like character dynamic that was actually fleshed out pretty well. Like I was interested in them as characters, but not that much. Like just the rest.
Not that much. But
yeah.
At that point, you're striving to find something interesting, and they just happen to be the most compelling part. Yeah. Because you know what, in a better written story, their relationship would be the most compelling thing. Yep. It's, you know, especially given for whatever reason, I really appreciated the writing, him describing his relationship with him to the SWAT guys. Mm-hmm. I thought that was actually very well done, describing his feelings. Yeah. You know, those two are more compelling than anybody else in that movie. Mm-hmm. But
yep, and just even the stakes, like something happens that's expected, but something happens, and a character is now in a situation where it's not like overpowered. Like she's not an overpowered character. That's vague enough as I can be without spoiling it. But
sure, yeah.
But yeah, that even in that situation, when the action like pops off and everything, I didn't feel the stakes of it because I didn't care about the character and I didn't care about what was going on. Like I wasn't.
Well, first of all, that vulnerability is such a lazy write.
Oh God.
Like, oh, okay. It just decides to go, and then it's your time. Like, that's okay. Yeah. There's no explanation as to why you're immortal, and your explanation as to how come, well, everything dies. Okay. Good.
Hundreds of years.
Good explanation.
It's, yep. Yeah.
Movie of the year, I say.
Oh, God.
And, Chuate Ejiofor, I might always butcher his name. I love him, but his character didn't make any sense.
No,
you're trying to tell me that you're following these immortals, seeing the amazing things that they've done throughout modern history, and you think nothing bad's going to happen to them when you help the evil pharmaceutical genius catch them?
Yep.
Fucking stop.
And even
it was just a way. Now he's like their finder of problems.
Yeah, they're Alfred basically. It's so lazy. Just all of it's just lazy and cliched, and like his turn and his backstory, like the road leading him to that point, is like just underdeveloped and uninteresting throughout it. It's just like I said, it's just running through the paces, and it's like, okay, if you're just going to just do this lazy franchise establishing movie, I don't know if it's obviously it's not intentional. No one sets out to make a bad movie, but if you're just going to be this lax and just lazy because you're setting up something that that should be more compelling because you have like established characters and stuff, like I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to go see the movie. I'm not going to watch The Old Guard 2, Old Guardier.
No.
I can't. Yeah. Except for when it hits Netflix, I'll force you to watch it so we can review it.
Oh God damn it! That would be evil of you.
Yeah, I could honestly see a scenario where I forgot how bad this movie was, and then think, oh well, you know, maybe it'll be fun to have Fekkes on to talk about the sequel.
I don't think I'll forget about how bad this was.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'd be curious to read the graphic novel to see if it's as poorly developed.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. I have other comic books I want to read, so I'm not going to waste my time now to go read the old guard.
And I would be interested as well, just slightly, because I wonder, is it a situation where, like you said, where the graphic novel is as lazy and just kind of just boring as the movie is, or is it a situation where the writer of the movie, who is the writer of the graphic novel series, did he just not know how to write a movie? Like, did he not, like, I didn't see his credits, but like, I don't know if he's an established screenwriter. Like, would it have been better if someone else adapted it for him, and like someone who knows how to structure a movie and like write a plot?
Like there's plenty of examples out there of good graphic novels that got turned into horrible or mediocre movies.
Oh yeah.
So it very well could be a decent graphic novel, but it's just nothing about the movies going to entice me to go read it or even give money to it at this point. So,
yep. Yeah. So I look forward to in 2 years or 3 years or whenever that I forget that this movie existed. And yeah, it's just, the more realistic scenario is that I'll see the sequel on Netflix or something and think, oh, I should go back and watch the first one and then watch the second one, not knowing that I've already watched and reviewed the first one. Yeah. I will say,
I said, painfully forgettable.
Yeah, I do like this run of her career where Charlize Theron is this action badass. I just wish that there was more to her.
I would like it better if the movies were better.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that one she did. Atomic. Yeah, she was Atomic Blonde, right?
Was she
Atomic Blonde?
I think so. Yeah, I was thinking more Fury Road and the Fast and Furious movies.
See, I was thinking because she did. There's two other ones. Atomic Blonde. Hold on, I'm gonna find it because there's another one that she did too that looked like I didn't see it. Yeah, Charlize Theron did Atomic Blonde, and she did another one that looked very generic. Let's see if I can find it. She's in Addams Family. That's weird.
Yeah. It wasn't Gringo, was it?
No.
The Huntsman.
I felt like it was like Aeon or something like that.
Oh. Huh.
Maybe I'm wrong about it.
Aeon Flux from 2005?
Was that her?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, yeah. Aeon Flux. Yeah, there it is. Aeon Flux. It just looked like a very generic badass female, action movie.
Yeah.
Generic type of deal. So I don't know. Fury Road was amazing, but you also had a legendary writer and director attached to that one.
That's true.
And I can't speak to the Fast and Furious movies because I haven't seen a single one of them.
That's true. Yeah, she doesn't do much in terms of action in them. She's more of just like a villain role in the last couple. Or the last one, I don't remember, but yeah, I don't know. I like that she's in action movies. I haven't seen Atomic Blonde. I've heard really good things about it though. So
yeah, I was interested to see it. I just never did see it. I don't know. Her Snow White and the Huntsman was garbage.
I've heard that too.
Oh yeah, I guess she's. I like Charlize Theron. I've seen her in things that I enjoyed her in, but I don't know. This was not one of them.
Nope. Same here. Yep. So I think that's it for our review of the old guard.
Yeah, I think that does it.
About it. Yeah. Do you have time to do a quick potpourri or?
Well, I don't know that I would even have anything to discuss with potpourri, to be perfectly honest.
How about this? Do you want to say one or two movies that you've watched while in quarantine from having COVID?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So while you're pulling that up, I'm just going to say we're going to go into potpourri, which is a section of the podcast where we talk about things we've watched, things we're looking forward to, whatever we want, as long as it smells good to kind of wind down the episode. It's potpourri. So, Fekkes, one or two movies that you've seen lately or rewatched?
So I'll go with two movies that I had not seen and then saw. So one of them, I'll start off with. I got super disinterested in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Right? I love the first one. I think it's an absolute classic. And I still find the second and third one to be entertaining. And I stopped off after I saw was On Stranger Shores or whatever. I think that was the fourth
Tides,
one.
I think. Yeah.
So I didn't see the newest one where they brought back Will and Elizabeth on Dead Man Tell No Tales. So, but before me and Cassie went on our trip to the Dominican, I wanted to watch. I have this thing where I watch movie related to trips that I'm about to take. So I thought, what better thing to watch than Caribbean pirate movies before I go to the Caribbean?
Yeah.
And so I watched the first 4, having seen all of them. Then I watched the last one, and it was about the same though. It was just, I feel like it was a rehash of everything. The whole turn that Will Turner's back and Elizabeth is back is kind of a letdown because they both have like a scene and they're just inconsequential in the movie. I mean, some of the set pieces were kind of neat, but it was like, okay, Jack Sparrow's doing his Jack Sparrow stuff, and it's the same stuff from the first 4. Not nearly as compelling as the first 3, which I still find to be compelling movies, but all in all, it's just kind of like a forgettable pirate movie, I guess. So, yeah, it completed my task of getting myself ready to bask in the Caribbean. But yeah, I'm happy I didn't pay money to go see it in the theaters.
Yeah, I did pay to see it in theaters because I went down to Evansville to visit Mike, and we went and saw it, and we reviewed it on the podcast. And that was one of those things where I never saw the 4th one. It had been many, many years since I saw the first 3, but seeing it, the only thing that really stood out to me or struck me about it was when that original Pirates of the Caribbean score comes on, and like that kind of like the theme music of Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, like that
theme music is amazing.
It is in one of my favorite like pieces of movie music, I think. So like that's really about it. Like I don't really remember much of it. The visual effects of, was it Javier Bardem?
Yeah, the visual effects are, I mean, it's top notch. It's a Disney. What's Michael Bruckheimer?
No,
not Michael Bruckheimer.
Jerry Bruckheimer.
Jerry Bruckheimer. Yeah, it's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, so the special effects are gonna be fantastic. But it's I'll watch the first 3 still, but I'll probably never see number 4 and 5 again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm right there with you. Yeah. And then one other movie.
So I'll probably ruffle some feathers with this one, and I think I talked to you about this, but so I'd never seen The Green Mile, and you lent me your copy of The Green Mile, and so people talk about this movie with reverence as it being such an amazing emotional film, and I thought it was pure sappy Oscar bait to me. Like it was okay, I guess, but everything just seemed like a trope to pull at the emotional heartstrings of the viewer, and to me, it just kind of, I got lost on it. Like I forget the name of the prison guard that's a complete asshole. He's just an asshole for no apparent reason, and I don't know. I was not impressed with it. Like I felt like the mouse was a trope too. The emotional attachment to the mouse, and we all know that he's going to die at the end. And they try to make it some big emotional ploy. It's like, I'm tired, boss. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I know people talk about this movie like it's like such an amazing, deep movie, but I just thought it was a cliched Oscar attempt movie. Like I've never read the short story it's based on. So this is the only experience I have. So maybe there's more in depth to it, but I don't know. I thought it was very meh to me, and I know that's going to rub people the wrong way.
It may, but to be honest, like, I can't give you any friction on it because honestly, I have not seen that movie in many, many, many years. Despite being a huge Stephen King fan, obviously, and loving Frank Darabont's other adaptations of Stephen King's work. So he did Shawshank.
Did he do Shawshank?
Yeah, and The Mist.
See, and no, I love Shawshank. Yeah. I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of. It felt like Shawshank to me, I guess. And maybe it's because of the prison setting, but
the prison setting, the animal attachment thing.
Yeah,
I could definitely see that. The kind of Yeah, the asshole guard. It's interesting.
No, the performances are fine. Michael Clark Duncan does a great job, and Tom Hanks never does a bad job. I don't know. There was nothing that really grabbed me about this movie, and I just thought it was very forgettable. I hate emotionally manipulative movies, and I felt like this one was very emotionally manipulative. So.
I can definitely understand that. As soon as you said emotionally manipulative, I was like, Green Book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Anyway, yeah, that's fair. I'll need to revisit it. It's interesting because you mentioned the short story. It was actually not too well, actually, but it was a serial novel.
Sorry.
King,
please mansplain it further.
Yes. So King released it in segments and everything. But yeah. Anyway, there's like 6 or 7 like editions of it that were released like monthly or something like that. So yeah, eventually we'll cover it on Tower Junkies at some point. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough.
But yeah, should I round us out with a couple movies I've seen real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So I've been kind of on a tear watching a lot of stuff. So the Barnes & Noble had their 50% off Criterion edition sale. So I bought a bunch of stuff. Like probably a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have bought, but I got really into a kick of watching Alfred Hitchcock, which I talked in the previous episode about. But aside from that, I'm not even going to bring up Criterion because none of these are popping out or something Criterion-y. But let's see. I will go ahead and say that I rewatched Bowfinger for the first time in probably 10 or 12 years.
Wow. I've never seen Bowfinger.
Oh, really? I think that you would really dig it. Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, Heather Graham, Jamie Kennedy. It's a really fun subversion of the Hollywood like Hollywood-itis, I guess. Because it's written by Steve Martin. So, do you know what Bowfinger is?
Yes, yeah, I know what it is.
Okay.
I want to say that came out when I was probably in late high school. It never struck me as something I really wanted to see, I guess.
It's interesting because rewatching it now, it came out in 1999, and this was... So in 1996, Scream came out, and Scream just changed my life because it made me want to watch as many movies as I can and learn more about movies and everything. And then, 3 years later... Bowfinger came out. It had Jamie Kennedy in it, so I'm like, I'm going to see it because Randy's in it. And then watching that, I was like, oh, this is making fun of Hollywood and making fun of filmmaking and stuff. And I legitimately learned things about filmmaking from that movie. Yeah. And it was just so it holds that kind of nostalgia in my heart. But rewatching it now, I was like, this is a really solid comedy. It's not like the greatest comedy of all time or anything, but there's a lot of really fun stuff that Steve Martin does and that Eddie Murphy does as well. He plays kind of a dual role thing, which yeah. It's just it's so much fun. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go out of my way, I think, but if it's in my way at some point, maybe I'll watch it.
That's fair. And then to round us out for good, I don't know. What should I talk about? Okay, so kind of in the same vein as Bowfinger, I watched 1995's Clueless. I rewatched it because I love that movie. Did you ever see Clueless?
Yeah, I've seen Clueless.
You're giving me kind of a look there.
Well, my look was, I don't know how that's in the same vein as Bowfinger.
Oh, just 90s comedy.
Okay, all right. I don't hate Clueless. I watched it because my sister watched it all the time, and so.
Oh yeah, totally. Me too.
Yeah, I don't hate. Yeah, I don't hate it. There was some entertaining aspects to it, so it's not the worst.
Yeah, I don't know, something about it. I love it. I love it. It's funny because when I saw it as a kid, I didn't get anything about it. I didn't understand a single thing because okay, this is about 90s teenagers in rich teenagers and stuff, and it's skewering that whole thing. It's parodying that, and I'm just like, oh, cool, funny jokes or whatever, like funny noises or funny words. I don't know. I don't know. I'm walking myself into a corner, but watching it like nowadays, it holds up pretty well for me. I don't know. I find it really fun.
It doesn't surprise me that it holds up well with you. So.
Yep.
I did appreciate your Snapchat when you're talking about what's his name? Donald Faison.
Yeah.
Donald Faison and his homophobic rant. Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny.
He says he's your boy Christian's a cake boy. He's a friend of Dorothy, and like he says all of these.
Barbra Streisand ticket buying friend of Dorothy or something like that. Yeah.
And I Snapchatted and said like, all right, Donald Faison's canceled.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. I really enjoyed that movie. So Clueless. Yep.
It's not a bad movie.
Yeah.
I've seen worse. I watched The Old Guard.
Right. Oh God. Oh jeez. All right. So should we kind of wind down and close out the episode? I know you've got to go to work. Yeah.
Got to go to work.
Yeah. By the way, officially on the podcast, congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yep. And are you looking forward to, well, I guess you wouldn't really work it if you're working nights, but like the 500? Like how's that going to look from a perspective?
It's probably going to be the same thing that they did for the Brickyard, where we're pretty much just going to have to, they'll station us at entrances to the track and make sure people that aren't supposed to be coming in don't come in. So like we'll have to do something. It just will not be as extensive as it normally is. So.
Yeah, that's... Honestly, I completely forgot that the Brickyard happened and was a thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I did think it was kind of funny, and like I don't know, not to pass judgment on anyone, but like I saw like an article that had a picture of just people standing outside of the track by the fence and just looking in during the race.
Oh, it's going to happen again.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be all kinds of people up and down 16th Street, I guarantee it.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever, fine. I get it, but I'm like, I'm not going to movie theaters and staring at into the windows.
You're not? Because I sat in AMC's parking lot for about 20 minutes the other day just staring at the entrance, with a tear in my eye.
I mean, it's your time is your time.
In fact, I go to the parking lot regularly to stream movies on Netflix.
Nice. Just kind of have it propped up and everything and just watch it?
Right.
Nice. Oh, God.
No, I won lunch on this, on the 500 thing. I called it back in May. I told everyone that they're not going to have fans at this thing. I was like, oh, no. Penske said that he's not going to run this without fans. If he has to, he'll postpone it to October. And I told him, I was like, no, he's not. They're going to run this thing without fans. I guarantee it. And sure enough, this week, I won lunch.
God, that's nuts. And just for context, how many people go to the race? It's
about 350,000 people.
Jesus. And that is so insane to me. Because it's run for 109 years or 106 years. This will be the 106th?
Somewhere around there. Yeah. They just had the 100th running of it a few years ago. So.
Yeah. And it's weird to me. Just an empty...
Yeah, it's weird for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Are they going to do baseball and put cardboard people in the stands?
Or maybe they're going to do like Korea and they're going to put a bunch of sex dolls in the stands. You hear about that?
Did they do that?
They did do that.
Amazing.
So South Korea, when they opened up their baseball games, they put a bunch of blow-up dolls in the stands and caught a bunch of shit for it, which I thought was hilarious.
That is pretty funny. Wow. Whew. All right, well... that'll do it for this episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Thank you so much, Fekkes, for pulling through and coming on the show.
It was a struggle, it was hit and miss there for a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're okay, and I hope everyone else is, staying safe and healthy and everything. And next time on the podcast, I think Mike and I are going to do something. We'll see, but. That'll do it for this episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. And they're doing that, and they're showing a Charlie Chaplin movie, Modern Times.
Modern Times, yeah.
And, like, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, oh, God, I would love to go see Modern Times or whatever. And then I was, like, thinking, even with the measures in place, I don't want to do that because... And I was thinking about it because, like, okay, I'm sure that it would be fine to go if, like, everyone's staying 6 feet apart and everyone's wearing masks and everything and the distancing between the chairs is fine. I'm sure it would be fine. But, like, there's a little part of me that's, like, paranoid because, like, I don't know how I would react to getting the virus. I don't know what kind of, like, how much it would knock me down in terms of the symptoms and everything. And then I don't know what that would do with my job, like putting me out of work for a couple of weeks. I don't know how my job would handle that. So I'm just like, I want to do it, but I just can't. And it's just frustrating that, like, I have that fear. It's annoying. Yeah.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to obsessiveviewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. And follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. And follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Fekkes, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com. and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, at TowerJunkiesPod.com and at TowerJunkiesPod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda, at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!